Hi, my name is Cecile Johnson. I am CEO of African Development Plan, and I'm here today as part of Global City Unity's community outreach, where we're talking about issues that affect the Black community and what you can do in forming part of the solution. Today, this series is part of a project called Connecting the Dots, a 2015 response to issues facing the Black community in Chicago, Illinois, and it is a collaboration of African Development Plan and the National Black Agenda Consortium Chicago branch. Today my guest is Stephen L. Naquan Heath, affectionately known as L. And the topic that he's going to be discussing with us is about creating sustainable solutions to address economic blight in the Black communities across the USA. So Stephen, welcome. Welcome back to our show.
Thank you so much, Cecile.
Many of us know you in the field where you're doing work with food, right? And sustainable food, as well as food that heals the bodies. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to take that to another level, right? Because it's about healing community. So in our communities today, we have something called, in the past we used to look at how was the economy going, and we would say, okay, that's how we would judge it. Today we say, well, how are the people doing, right? And it's called the Human Development Index, and it's about what people can do and be, and it's a process of improving people's well-being and expanding their freedoms and opportunities. So to tie into the topic of economics today, we're going to talk a little bit about a decent standard of living, right? How are the people doing? And so in Chicago and in Illinois, we note that the unemployment rate for Black people is the highest, right? Like 19% for Black people, and it is 7.9% for white, and it is 11.1% for Hispanics. When you look at some of the places that have severe economic distress, that's Chicago Heights and Harvey, Kankakee, North Chicago, East St. Louis, and people will try to tell you, oh, that's because of the depression that we just had. No, when you look at the data, it shows that for decades this has been going on. And these places where we, people of brown people, people of color predominantly live, have had these very disadvantaged communities, right? In Illinois, nearly 1 in 2 Black male aged 16 to 24 is unemployed, but when you come into the city of Chicago, you see that 92% of Black teens were unemployed in 2013. When you go nationally, you see that that number is 83% nationally. So when you see some of the crisis that's happening across America in our inner cities and other places, we know what it is. It's about economics, right? If people had something to do with themselves, there would be a lowering of the crime and all these other things that go with it. When you look in our community, one of the interesting things that I found out was that Asian men and Asian women actually are the ones who earn the most money. But then just look around our communities. Who owns the businesses in our communities, right?
Yes.
And when you notice is that median net worth for Black households in 2011, which was $6,446, was actually lower than it was in 1984, when the dollar was actually probably worth a little bit more, right? And at that time it was $7,150. So high-earned married Black households have on average less wealth than low-earning white households. Now, how long does the dollar circulate in your community? That really tells you what's going on. And when it relates to Black people, the dollar spends 6 hours. 6 hours in our community. It doesn't spend a day, doesn't even spend, that's a quarter. 6 times is a quarter day in our community. But you go to the Asian community and the dollar spends a whole month there. When you go to the white community, the dollar spends 17 days there, and I'm talking about the overall white community. When you go to the Jewish community, the dollar spends 20 days there. This is a good thing, right? When you have money in your community and you spend it with yourself, you employ others. This 92% unemployment that we have with the youth would be reduced if we were the ones who were owning the businesses in our community. And therefore the dollar would spend a couple of days with us and employ some people, reduce the poverty rate, reduce the unemployment, and all the other negative things that go with it. So Black people have $1.1 trillion that they spend. That's our buying power, and yet we spend 2 cents of that goes to a Black business. So L, these are some of the data that we've been looking at, right? Dr. Claude Anderson says that there are 5 stages to power. The first stage is economics, the second stage is political, the third stage is legal, fourth stage is media, the fifth stage is education. He says when you have an economic base, you buy, sell, rent, and lease your politicians. And today in America, we find that we have more elected officials, Black elected officials, than we've ever had. And when you look at the state of our community, we're in the worst shape than we ever had. Why is that? Because we didn't take care of the economic base first, right?
Right.
And we can't pay the piper, So therefore, they don't do nothing for us. So given that, right, what I would like you to do is to tell a little bit about yourself first, because even though we know you in a certain way, we want to know you, what's your background, right? And then we want to ask you a little bit about how it used to be, because you'd like to talk to me about that, how it used to be, what you saw. Because sometimes the young people don't know what it used to be. So tell them about it.
Okay, well, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. And when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of fast food restaurants, but there was a lot of black businesses all down 47th Street on east of Halsted, because we couldn't go west of Halsted because the white folks would chase us from over there. All up and down 63rd Street. There were businesses that were black owned. There was the local hardware store. We still have the barber, we still have the beauty shop, but there was the hardware store. There were the small lumber yards when you needed work to be done in your house. There was grocery stores that actually had produce departments. So when Martin Luther King died and we had the riots in the 60s, the businesses were burnt out, people looted, they destroyed the businesses. A lot of the black businesses didn't have insurance. They never came back. But what we saw was gradually other people that did not live in the community began to open up businesses within our community. So naturally they employed people of their same cultures because that's who they trusted.
Right.
So we have the highest rate of unemployment because we aren't creating any jobs. Our educational system is teaching us how to be laborers and how to be workers. It does not teach us how to be entrepreneurs. I began when I was 19 years old in real estate. I had $50. I bid it on 50 buildings, $1 each, and I got 7 of them. So at 19 years old, I owned 7 pieces of property on the south side of Chicago. HUD had an auction back then in the 70s. You could be at $1, thousands of properties. I lost 6 of them. I made every mistake known to man, but I learned from my mistakes. So I was in real estate, buying, rehabbing, selling property for many, many years up until the real estate crash in 2008. Then I took my money and I invested it in the food business. I created Totally Vegan. And then 3 or 4 years ago, I created Heaven on Earth Herbs when I bought land in Africa where we began to grow moringa, soursop. So I always looked at Marcus Garvey, and by the way, this is Marcus Garvey's anniversary today.
Yes, yes.
So what he did was he believed that we had to create commerce with Africa, and that the economics he got through community organizations that he established in the black communities in Detroit, in Cleveland, in Chicago, in Atlanta. So that's how he raised his money. They sabotaged him. He had his ship, I forgot the name of it. It was the
Yeah, 3 ships.
the Black Star, I know was one of them. But if you look at that model, when you recreate commerce with Africa, not only are you creating business and jobs here, but you're creating them back home in Africa. So we have to reestablish a connection with Africa because we've been over here for 500 years for a reason. And that is so that we can help people back there to develop. Africa is in need of development. And I mean development by people of our mindset, because other cultures have come into Africa, and what they've done, if they stripped Africa of their resources, they've stripped them of their power, and the root of all wealth is in natural resources. And Africa has more natural resources than any continent on the planet. So how is it that the poorest people can be in the richest land?
Well, that would be the same about America, isn't it? Right? You've mentioned some interesting things. You've mentioned Africa. And when you look at the black community here in America, which is allegedly one of the richest lands, and you see the poverty levels, right?
Yes.
Then you can ask the same question. How is it Africa has the richest resources, yet the poorest people?
Yes.
2015, Africa has 48% of the world's poor. 1990, Africa had 20%.
Right.
Okay, so what you've seen is an increase in the poverty of the people, even though billions in wealth and resources is being
Absolutely.
found daily. Okay.
And the same problem over there is the same problem over here. There
Right.
are systems in place
Right.
that keep people in power empowered. These are systems. It is not by chance. These are systems that are in place. But regardless of those systems, If we go back to the land, as Malcolm X said, well, if you're not fighting about land, you're not fighting about nothing.
Right.
We have millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in vacant property in our neighborhoods.
Right.
Okay? So the development of those properties, not for greed, not for money, but to develop it and to use that as a basis to create infrastructure. When is the last time a new mall was built in a ghetto, in an African community?
I haven't found one.
Right. So if we're not building structures that employ people and create jobs, then how can we expect for our youth to have jobs?
Right.
To go out somewhere else, and in that community they're going to, they have youth.
Right.
So they're going to employ their youth before they employ our youth.
Right.
The problem is that there's no job creation within our community. There's not a system where people can take good ideas and develop them into businesses. The infrastructure is not in place. So to create malls, to create incubators that people could come through, because as Genesis said, in the beginning the earth was void and without form. But the Creator had everything he needed to create everything. So it's not that we don't have what we need. Everything we need is in our community.
Right.
It's a matter of organizing it for the benefit of the community. We're waiting for someone else to come up with solutions to our problems.
Right.
And when someone else comes up with a solution, you better believe that solution is going to benefit the people that they want to get employment. That solution is going to empower them. We have to come up with solutions, community-based economics, local growing of food, local manufacturing. Everybody drinks water every day. Everybody uses toilet paper every day. How come we don't have a water business in our communities?
Right.
That supplies water, is used every day? How come we don't have a company, or how come we don't use the company that makes black toilet paper? Because there's a company that makes toilet paper. But collectively, we need an infrastructure where we can focus our attention on, and that's what we were talking about earlier, the Black Unity Mall.
Right. You mentioned three words: Black Unity and Mall. Right.
Yes.
A big problem that I've seen in our community, and this is not just in Chicago, but Chicago has really been a really big problem, is the issue of unity. Right.
Yes.
And this lack of unity, we're quick to support others. This is August. This is Black History. This is Buy Black Business Month, right? This is also a historic month because August 1st, 1920, Marcus Garvey at Madison Square Gardens was able to bring 25,000 people together from 5 different continents to begin to talk about the formation of what you see now today with the flag and the principles of the UNIA, right? And the Black Economic Cooperative, because Marcus Garvey said everything that we use, we should be able to produce.
Yes.
Right? And he used an infrastructure that we already have. He used the churches,
Yes.
the black churches at the time.
Yes.
He had 983 chapters, right, in the 5 continents around the world, and had 6 million members by 1925. Today, we have TV, Twitter, phone, all these things, computers, and yet we cannot bring ourselves together.
But those things disconnect us. They don't bring us together. We have not used those tools to focus. What a laser is light that focuses highly concentrated on a point. So we have to be goal-orientated and focused on a point of economic development. We have everything we need,
Right.
but the powers that be will not finance those things. So like Marcus Garvey did, he financed it through his own organizations. We're waiting on someone to give us a grant. We're waiting on someone to finance something for us, when in reality, we have everything we need.
Right.
We have hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate
Right.
in our community that could be used to finance economic development, that could be used to finance a mall. Real estate, land is the essence, the basis of all wealth.
So let's talk about, there was a film that came out recently called 7 a.m. And in 7 a.m., the story that I remember most is Grandma. Grandma goes to church on Sunday and gives her collection tithe to the church. On Monday, the church takes its money to a white bank. The white bank then invests in white developers who then move into the black community and gentrify. And I have no problem with gentrification if it includes us, but it usually doesn't. So now the prices of the properties have all gone up. Grandma is on fixed income. Grandma can't pay the taxes, and so grandma is now dispossessed. Somebody now owns her property. So grandma financed her own demise. That's what I got from that. Right?
Yes.
So how do we address that? Because what I'm hearing there is we have 2 black banks in Chicago, right? But I think it's Seaway and this other one, Illinois Federal, right? But there's 2 others that are from out of state. So it's about 4 altogether. And they shouldn't have to be begging for money because we are banking with all these other big name banks, which I don't have a problem with banking with them, but we don't see any growth in our community. We don't see any business in our community. So that means they ain't loaning to our community, but they're taking our money.
Well, I don't see vision in our community because with vision, there comes planning.
Right.
And if we had a plan to take to that bank, a business plan that showed, well, we want to build a mall to house 200 businesses. We want to do an incubator for business development. If we capture 10% of the dollars that are spent in this neighborhood, we could grow so many millions of dollars. So a plan
Right.
that is inclusive within our community, not outside of our community. What would it do? It would create jobs. It would create entrepreneurs. It would create business, real estate development. Property value would go up. So if you haven't bought something to the bank to say, yes, we want you to finance this, and this will assist us in the development of our community. So the bank is not going to create something. That's not their job. So the leaders of the community, the people that are community planners, the people that the powers that be, our so-called leaders, our senators, our congressmen, they should be able to bring people together to create a brain trust, or we have to do it ourselves.
Well, I was
We have
going
to
to
come
say
up with our own
that.
plan.
I was going to say that. Like I said, we have more political representation today than we've ever had. So in our
Politicians
community,
are followers, not leaders.
exactly, exactly. So in Chicago here, we have been forming a Black Agenda. A Black Agenda Consortium is here. We also have a coalition of Black community organizations, and we've been building coalition with people, right? So I like the idea that you're saying, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're building a brain trust of experts. And what we need to now do is move that to the next level. We need to be able to pool our resources and use cooperative economics, right, to begin to fund some of these projects. Milton Friedman, the economist from the University of Chicago, who I really don't care much about, but he says something very important. He says all crisis creates change. And the change that occurs from the ideas that are lying around. He
And
said
all crisis creates opportunity.
exactly. He says the ideas that are lying around, he says our goal is to create those ideas so when the politically impossible becomes politically inevitable, they are implemented. Because in our community we have been so reactionary, right? And we've been worn down to some degree at this point, where we're about 3rd stage trauma, right? We keep reacting. What is needed now is for those who have the capacity to come together. So this is kind of like a plea that we're putting out right here, and begin to help us to create this Black Unity Mall. A Black Unity Mall that first is in key spots in the Black communities, right? So it could be shared, just like how we drive out to all these other places, right, to spend our money, we could be driving there. In this Black mall, we'd be using cooperative economics. I am so tired of people telling me how they're taking the bus to the casino, and they have set aside $100 or $200 that they can just give to the casino. Could you just give it to the Black United Fund? We're going to set up a fund with the Black United Fund, right? And that money will then be used as part of the cooperative. You can get shares. We need to talk to somebody who can help us to do that, right? Create shares just like Marcus Garvey did. And you'll be now buying shares in that mall. But you will also be investing in your children, because
That's
the 92% unemployment will be addressed when the children will have a place that they can do their entrepreneurship,
Yes.
learn new skills, learn
Yes.
business skills, etc.
Which deals with our educational system. Our educational system is not designed for us to become entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
It's designed for us to become workers. So we have to take responsibility and take action to educate our children about economics, about business opportunities, because wherever there's a void or wherever there's a need, there's an opportunity to create commerce. There's an opportunity to provide a product. If you've always talked about the needs assessment that we need. That's so important.
Right.
Because when you have a needs assessment and then you begin to figure out how much money is being spent that we're not producing that item, then we create a business they can take in a percentage of those funds.
Right.
And if the numbers are done and the business, my background is, my bachelor's is in electronic engineering, but my master's is in business, my MBA.
Right.
So what we have to do is we have to start with a plan. I'm gonna tell a real short story. There was a nation of turtles that lived on the sea, and two great birds came and swooped up turtle eggs and was taking them back to the nest to feed their young. Some of the eggs fell as they were getting back to the nest. They landed next to a lake, and the eggs grew and grew, and 500 years later, there was a whole nation of turtles on the lake. So there was one turtle named Batu, and he was a friend of a bird. And he asked the bird, why is it that we don't feel home here? The bird told him, because you're a turtle and turtles live on the sea. And Batu said, well, how do we get to the sea? He said, you're on an island, and you're in the middle of the island. If you go any direction this far, you will reach the sea. So Batu did the computations, and he realized it would take 3 generations to reach the sea. So he called the council of the elders together, and they made a blueprint and a map, and they began to march according to the map. And when that generation died, the next generation stayed on course on the map. And then the 3rd generation reached the sea. I said that to say this. A wrong decision is better than no decision.
Right.
We need to have a plan that goes generational,
Right.
beyond what we can do personally. That's the purpose of corporations.
Right.
If you create a corporation, you plug the right people, you have job descriptions, and the best qualified person that fits that job description, that corporation will continue.
That's right.
So planning is key, execution is key, projections, economics is all key.
And what we've not been seeing a lot of that in our community. We're hoping that with this series of shows that we're doing, where we're actually talking about what's going on and bringing on people like yourself who are giving these ideas, that we will begin to plant seeds. I call myself a farmer, and I'm planting ideas, seeds of the possibilities, right? Because this is not rocket science. We're going to die as a people if we do not solve this economic issue. And since we are here dressed in clothes, food that we ate, right?
Water that we drink.
Water that we drink, shelter that we came from,
Well,
and none of it belongs to us, there's something wrong with that
well,
picture.
The Willie Lynch papers say, in order to create a slave, you first make them totally dependent on you for their every need. It's not that we don't know how to make clothes. We don't make clothes because we've been trained, oh, it's better to buy them from somebody else.
Right.
It's not that we can't grow food. It's not like we can't produce our own water. We're more comfortable letting somebody do something for us than for doing for ourselves. So we have to come up with the solutions,
Right.
not anybody outside of the community.
Right.
And the mall needs to be community owned.
Right.
And once you have that model, it needs to go to every city in the United States, just like the systems that are in place are in every city in the United States.
That's right.
We need to set up systems and infrastructure that support black business through marketing, through sales, through manufacturing. We need to create, how many manufacturing plants do African Americans own?
Very few. There are a few, but very few.
Very few.
Very few.
So if we look at the needs, we're looking at the possibilities.
That's right. And this, folks, instead of depressing you, should actually make you excited. Because for young people, that means it's opportunity. It means it's time for us to tie into your young minds. We, as a community, need to begin to talk about what is education. The education that our children are getting is not providing for the needs of our community, right? Which means we need to have this conversation. In the city of Chicago, they're having issues with the pension fund. The CEO has already projected that they're going to have to be laying off teachers, etc., right? See, again, when things are bad, we always get a lot of it. Now, the city of Chicago CPS public schools, 91% non-white. So you can understand why the state, right, where other districts are more white than us, are not concerned about what happens to the 91% non-white children in the city of Chicago. I'm going to call a spade with a spade. That's exactly what it is. It's racism. So when we begin to now focus in our communities, all that money that you spend in Inglewood, 26 million on a lottery, right? That's 26 million that you could have spent
To build them all.
to build them all,
To
right?
create jobs.
Shears, which would then, once the business begins to boom, because we do spend 1.1 trillion,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Then you will get your money back. And you'll begin to have the residual income and generational wealth that other groups have.
Yes.
Because it's a principle and it's a practice, right?
Yes.
So we're not creating something new here. What we're saying to us as black people is that we need to begin to see ourselves as a center of our universe and to begin to solve our problems in that way. So we're going to be looking at economics. We're going to be looking at this creation of this mall, Black Mall, right? We're planting the seeds here. If you would like to have a store in there, how can you become a part of it, right?
That's
We're going
right.
to need engineers and architects and preferably people of color. Because again, when you look at our unemployment, it's us who are unemployed. So if we're going to create something in our community, we would like to create it. So we're looking for us to invest in us. Okay, folks, we need this kind of conversation. We also need for people to begin to speak up about what's happening in our education with CPS. The results, 11% of the children who leave high school are college ready. 11%. So that's not good enough. That's not good enough, right? When 10% of our children are reading on grade level at the 4th grade, that's not going to prepare a child who's going to be ready for the type of work that we now need them to do.
Well,
So,
if you teach a child agriculture, he can grow food. He can make a living. If you teach a child how to do carpentry, he can build a house. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need carpenters, we need scientists.
Right.
We need people that can research. See, colleges take the information that they learn and they use it to create businesses. They allow businesses to take that data to create new products with.
Right.
So we need scientists, we need researchers. Our community needs everything.
Exactly.
Because we're 100% dependent on other people for everything that we have. Now that's a terrible thing, but on the other hand, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a great opportunity
I agree, if
for
you
us
flip
to
it.
identify an area that we can do this in, and collectively, again, unity is the key.
Right.
Because if we have incubators, now the incubator could supply legal, web
Marketing,
development,
right.
marketing, distribution,
Mm-hmm.
Administrative, employees that you need, planning.
Right.
We have someone there that can create business plans,
Right.
projections. The incubator should include financing. So in an incubator, you use an incubator when something cannot survive by itself, when a child is premature.
Right.
Well, that's what our businesses are.
Right.
It's not that there's a lack of black businesses in Chicago. It's that there's a lack of black businesses that can grow and continue. We die out because we don't have the infrastructure necessary for growth. So we have to talk about, in this mall, having an incubator
Right.
for business development,
Right.
so that more people can become, because there's no lack of ideas, there's no lack of products that are needed, but there's a lack of is focus by us, on us, for us.
And seed money.
Yes.
So we have SBA programs, et cetera, out there, folks, but obviously they haven't worked. Again, just look
No, they
around.
don't.
The evidence is there. We have a lot of black businesses, but they're one-person establishments, okay? Usually in response to the high unemployment. So let's be real. We need something new, something different, something that is about us, that is really caring about us. And every time we have ever tried to address issues that are about us, they find reasons to defund it or circumvent it, et cetera, right?
As entrepreneurs,
Right.
let me say one thing. If in our community we were able to get 10 vacant properties, okay, and they were only worth $50,000 each, that's $500,000 in collateral. If we did that collectively, see, we do it. I've done that individually for years.
Right.
I've purchased, rehab, and sold properties for many years. But if we did it collectively, then that is a way of financing for us, by us. So we have to
We
come
have
up
run
with
out of
creative
time.
ways of financing.
Okay, thank you, Elle. We have run out of time here. I want to thank Stephen Heath for taking this time to share with us and plant a few seeds with you on how we can change our economic future. And again, my name is Cecile Johnson. I'm CEO of African Development Plan, and I want to thank Global City Unity Community Outreach for giving us this opportunity to share these ideas. You can connect with me at www.africandevelopmentplan.org. Okay, thank you. Take care. Thanks, Elle.